Okay, so if you are a beginner and you're not very comfortable with your drawing skills, I would recommend to use a pencil and then kind of sketch out the shape of the leaf. And well, actually let's do it together. So I'm going to pick a leaf that I quite like the look of, and I'm going to just basically draw it out. And this is an HB pencil, so you can draw quite lightly with it, and it should erase quite well. So over here, I'm just going to do these very light sketches. So I think that should be enough. That looks lovely. So I've got 3 of those on this side and 2 here. And now what I would do is I would basically also add the stalk like that, and now I would go over it with the fountain pen. This is the time that you can correct things slightly. You don't have to follow the exact lines. If you wanted to kind of bring it in a bit more or out, this is the time to do it. And again, in botanical art, the less detail, the better. So here we go. So you can see I'm correcting as I'm going. Like that. And then let the ink dry out completely before you're going to introduce the watercolor and before you're going to erase the pencil marks. It's very important to erase the pencil marks because once the watercolor goes on top, the gum arabic inside the watercolor, which helps the pigment to dry, to adhere to the paper so that you don't swipe it away, also helps to seal the graphite. So if you ever go with watercolor over the graphite lines, you're very unlikely will be able to get rid of the lines thereafter. So make sure you erase the pencil lines beforehand. So let's give this just maybe, I don't know, 20-30 seconds time to fully dry, so I don't want to erase or smudge the ink line. All right, so let's do that now. Also, when you're erasing, try not pressing too hard. Don't want to damage the paper. Ideally, you just would draw straight with the ink, but not all of us are at the same level, so I wanted to show you how to do it if you are more of a beginner. So a great thing to do is not to use your possibly dirty fingertips to smudge things, but just a nice fluffy brush like that. Okay, so let's start. Again, looking at the colors, I'm going to start by firstly just adding water, and you can see it's slightly tinted because I already used quite a lot of different colors in there. So make sure you don't go outside of these lines, and just put water down onto the most part of the leaf, or the actual part of the leaf, covering even these darker bits. So it should have a nice gloss to it when you look at an angle, and not be dry. If the paper is starting to dry, this technique is not going to work very well. So, okay, now I'm going to go for this sub green here and just quite literally dab it into the areas. We want the color or the pigments in the color do its own thing. So I can see that on the edge of the leaf it's the darkest, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and just move the pigment. So if you start seeing this white line here where it's starting to dry up, just go over it closer to the ink line like that. And this might be a good time to introduce a bit of the rose sienna into it, just to change up the color slightly. You can see it's not really making that much of a difference, but it's adding a little extra color. So as you can see, I'm trying to avoid these darker areas here, but that really does not matter if it flows into it still. Now I'm going to see what happens if I add this beautiful bright green that we have here. So this color is going to go just in the middle here. And that's it. So I'm going to leave it to dry. And we will come back later. Or in fact, while it's still a little bit wet, I want to add this little touch. It might make a little bit of a mess, but that's fine. We'll embrace that. So at this point, I'm just going to let it dry and then we'll come back to it. Also just realized I forgot the stem, so the stem is quite light. So this light green mix will do nicely. Like that. Okay, give it a few minutes and we'll meet again. Also, what you may want to do, if there's like a puddle of water and that green pulled out too much into it, just pick up that color. Same thing here. It also will add that extra texture to your painting. So you can see that way it won't be pulling into there anymore. Okay, so while all of this has been drying, I have gone ahead and sort of put all the information down that I want to remember. So here are the colors that I have used, which is the Daniel Smith Olive Green, and it's a 2-pigment mix, PY97, which is ultramarine blue, and PB29, which is raw amber. And then we have also used Winsor Newton Sap Green, which is PG36, a phthalo green, with PY110, which is isoindolinone. It's like a yellow-orange type of a color, or pigment rather. And then we have Mission Gold, which I used just a tiny bit to mix into some areas, and that is a leaf green. PY3, which is a lemon yellow, and PG7, which is also a phthalo green. So now you can see we have interesting texture there, and what I could do is just basically add the darkest color, which is that Perylene Green by Schmincke. So that's a PBK 31, a single pigment color, and that particular pigment is called Perylene. So what we're going to do is just add this color right into these dark bits, and you might want to switch to a smaller brush actually for this exercise. I'm going to go for the Silver Black Velvet. as it has a lovely tip, and I can move out the color. You can see it sort of picks up a lovely bit of color, and it's great for detailing. So if I picked up too much color and I want to add a bit, I'm just going to add it right there. So this is already quite a bit more than you'd think to do in a modern botanical, because this is essentially glazing, but it's a fast type of a glazing. Also, you could skip that part if you don't like it, if you just want to keep it all one color anyway, and make a simpler version of it. But I think adding a little bit of a detail right at the end makes things look more interesting, and gets a bit more contrast there. The other thing I would do is just possibly add a little bit of darkness in certain areas, and for that I'm going to just use the same brush, as I don't want to have too much puddle or too much water, and add a bit of this perylene green to it. So you can see now we have this perfect color. If I'm just going to swatch it here, so it's a color that I kind of mixed up the Winsor Newton sub green with a bit of the perylene to get a color in between them, so it's not too far off from what we already have here. I'm just going to add a little contrasting line right here. It's a great brush for detailing, and basically what I'm going to do is just add a little line there, and then with a wet clean brush just soften the edge a bit, and you can see I have created a darker line. I'm going to go back into the same mix and just repeat it all along this side. Like so. Okay, and we can also do a little bit of that into the middle, just to differentiate the, so let's see, this is going to be a bit too light, so I'm just going to mix up a darker color. That's good now. Just to have a little contrast right here, like so. And with a clean brush, all I'm going to do is just soften the edge. With it, you can see it's sort of pulling a bit of that perylene green from the color, so that's absolutely fine. You get a bit of more of the watercolor magic where things start to move around a bit more. So that is a very kind of simple way, but still with a bit more fussing. There is a faster way to do, and I can show you that maybe on a smaller version leaf. So let's do it. I'm going to go straight in with my fountain pen and show you how to do that. So you can see this leaf resembles quite closely, but if we wanted to add a little touch more, what I would do is just simplify it a little. So what I would do here is basically just wet the entire leaf. The ink is moving slightly because I literally went straight in. It needed maybe 10-15 seconds to dry, but I'm okay with it. So this is a bit of a dirty water because that's what my water is looking in the jar, so that's fine. It kind of tinted it. It's not a big deal. And what we're going to do is just mix up a color here that we like. I'd say this is a good mix right here. And just quite generously go into the leaf. And the key thing with modern botanicals is to not overwork things. So just let it happen by itself, see what happens. Even if you may think it's not looking quite, you know, finished or done because you have some white areas, just be patient, step away and let it dry, and I'll show you what to do next. Hey everyone, so we are back. And I have been just talking to myself and I realized I haven't recorded. Okay, so to recap, what has happened now is, as you can see, the color looks really beautiful. There is no white of the paper because the previous color was already tinted from the dirty water, so to speak, and therefore the pigment just pulled in nicely. What happens when you don't work too much with the colors, you don't do all the glazes and things, it just has this natural way of creating these beautiful blossoms and blooms and runbacks, and it's like what I like to call a tie-dye effect. So it's very natural, it's very free-flowing, and you allow the color to do its thing and kind of shine. To me it looks a lot more fresher, a lot more modern than this. Here, when I look at this compared to that, I mean, on its own, I think I like it. It still looks a little bit overworked, to be honest. I like to always keep a bit of white in my illustration. So for that reason, I prefer this type of a style. So what you could do now, when it's completely dry, you could do what we have done in the previous illustration, where with a small brush we just went ahead and added the perylene just in these areas. This time no other glazing of any other areas, because you can see it already naturally happened right here. So we have this darker edge here, here and there, and it looks a lot more interesting to me than just having a kind of a forced look. So here I like it more because it's more kind of clean looking, but again, this is all depending on your own style. So for now I'm going to do something different rather than what I just told you with the perylene in these darker areas. I'm just going to go through my pencils and pick out some greens. So from my luminance I picked out these this color, which I absolutely love, is the green ochre. I think this was one of my first colors that promoted the entire collection later on. So this is a light, a nice color because it kind of sits well here. It's got a bit of that sort of greeny color with a bit of yellow in there. Then we have a bunch of these colors. So this one is the Green Earth by Derwent Lightfast. I would say it probably sits close. Oops, no, it actually is very close to here, so I'm just going to swatch it. Oh, I'm checking if my hammock has arrived. No, it's not. Right, so we have Earth Green by Faber-Castell, which is going to be a very similar color. So let me just swatch it here. Yeah, it's quite similar. And then we have this green, which is a permanent green olive. And let's do it here. Also by Faber-Castell. So I have kind of these sort of choices of these colors. And I think I'll probably go with these two. So this would be my darkest, and just kind of not a perfect fill-in of the color, but just randomly kind of scribble marks. I think that's what makes things look a little bit more modern as well. So just like that. And really I'd like a darker color, but I can't see any darker green unless I pull out my big pencil set and try to find something in there. So let's have a look. Okay, so there is something that could work potentially. There is a racing green. I think that would be a good color. Let's try it. Okay, so racing green. Yeah, that's a good match to this Paraline, isn't it? Okay, so that is a lovely color. Just in some areas like that. That creates a bit more contrast. So I quite like this look. So the watercolor shines through, and then we have a bit more of the pencil kind of scribble work. And I will just show you again the three colors that I've used. So I've got this one, I've got this one. I'll just blend them a little here. They blend beautifully, these two, just gorgeous. Let me just show you a quick close up. I didn't even try hard at blending them, they just worked well. And what was the other one? Oh, this one here. Oh yeah, mind you, I haven't tried blending the Faber-Castell polychromos with this one here, luminance, before. They blend beautifully. They're like made for one another. Really interesting. So there you go. That's the color combo that I used. So I hope you enjoyed this little botanical green corner that we had today on my desk, and kind of going through all these different aspects of botanical art, which is really a simplified version of looking at things and, you know, studying different shapes and colors and mixing. Just really easygoing, nothing too complicated, nothing too advanced, but something that we all could do on a day off or on an hour off. So yeah, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think about this new series, and I will see you soon.